Hello, this talks about my trip to China, and I hope it's not too long. I also uploaded some fun videos, which you should have the link to. This was a field guide's wildlife trip through Western Sichuan, and then a couple of us went on to a couple of days of cultural stuff in Xi'an, which is to the northeast of this area. And on the far western part of this trip, we're in what's called the Tibetan Autonomous Region, which is not the country of Tibet, but is still part of China, but is clearly the ethnic Tibetan folks and their language. So I arrived in Chengdu at what was said to be the old airport. Here is baggage claim, which I couldn't help taking a photo of. It's enormous and it looks modern, and this is not the new airport. I'm only going to show a couple of hotels. They were fairly generic, perfectly fine, modern. Here is a room, you can see it's bland, has really everything you need, and maybe more than one does need. Electric curtains, plenty of drinking water. And the first day, which was only a few hours after I got to my hotel, I think around 3 a.m., went to the Chengdu Panda Center, one of the main panda breeding centers. And I wasn't sure what to expect. It was just me and a young guide, and it's a massive place, and you can see they're geared up for lots of folks. Sichuan is completely besotted by pandas, and there are all sorts of weird images really everywhere. Along with really anywhere you go in China, you need your passport to buy the ticket, and they scan it, and you see all your information come up on the screen when you go through with your QR code on your ticket. And you're at a high level, and now I'm overlooking the Panda Center, and it is not what I expected. I expected a few enclosures, and it is huge. And what came to be my view, it's been built with seemingly money is no object. The signs pretty much everywhere are in Mandarin and English. Sometimes the translation is a bit weird. Google Translate actually typically does a better job. This was actually later in the day. Some of the individual pandas are very popular, but we went early to see them being fed, which is when they're moving. I'm not putting videos into this presentation because they seem to mess up, so I've kept the videos out. But I will say videos of pandas, especially baby pandas, eating is adorably cute. They planted it beautifully. And here's yet another instant thought about China, which is here are a bunch of people wandering around, and their job seems to be to stand with the sign saying, "Keep quiet." Is this a job, or are they mopping up unemployment? Hard to know. I never did get an answer. This is a smaller panda in a tree, and very cute. They are serious about protecting this animal, and we are going later to some of the giant panda national parks, which are enormous. One of the things you're going to see in this presentation is signs, all sorts of signs about what not to do. I thought this was particularly bizarre. Do they put the sign on when the chair is wet and take it off, or is this chair always wet? I've no idea. And yes, you can buy all sorts of pandas in every shape and form. This was my guide, and she did a really nice job. Typically they teach written and reading English in high school, but they don't teach spoken English. In the park, you could also get foods with panda images on it. We went out to lunch, and she took me to this hot pot restaurant, my first time of hot pot, and it was fun. Okay, so now I'm enjoying the trip. There are 8 folks, plus Doug, the New York international guide, and Shay, the Chinese guide, who was with us for the whole time. And we arrived at a restaurant, and the food arrived. Typically, we had 8 dishes, and the food was fantastic. I've never had Chinese food like it, and there were good varieties, with the possible exception of white rice the whole time. This was breakfast in the hotel, and I just thought it was an amusing sign on the mushrooms. This was our minibus. Candidly, when we were traveling with our luggage, it could be a bit squashed, but they really don't come in a slightly bigger size. Okay, and lunch. And you can see here we are eating again. We typically got 8 dishes and rice, and they varied. Oops. I actually don't remember what this is, but you can see very attractive. It could be fish. And this was Peking duck, which was spectacular. Incredibly thin pancakes to go with it. Now we're leaving Chengdu and starting to drive west, and we go past this building called the Global Center. I looked it up. It's one of the largest buildings in the world, with an entire city complex inside, with hotels and all sorts of things. Amazing. This is a service area, and many signs. I'm trying to find out why there are all these signs everywhere and what is their impact, and that's also something that I can't figure out. Checking into the next hotel, huge lobby, not untypical. And I'm not going to show much wildlife. This was a hide the next morning, and it was to see silver pheasants. And here is the male with its amazing long tail, performing nicely. And here is the female, looking, I actually think, more spectacular. We're in this reserve, and it's a mixture of bamboo and trees, and you can see it's uninterrupted. Shay, our local guide, provide breakfast. He typically provided Skippy peanut butter, strawberry jam, bananas, hard-boiled eggs, bread, which was labeled as toast, yogurts, sometimes yak yogurt, which was fantastic, some sort of granola and milk, and coffee and tea. Big tea growing area. Signs, and the blue and green sign refer to the apps. I think the blue sign is Alipay, which I had successfully downloaded to my phone and connected while I was still home, and I used that to pay successfully. Pretty much everything is on the phone. I think the green may be WeChat. I just was amused at the napkin labeling here. Signs in the elevator. Every elevator had multiple signs telling you all sorts of things not to do, including no slapping, which was particularly strange. Just a little street market along the way. I don't know how you know to give priority to the weak and sick, but or whether it means anything. Typical view, you can see the apartments and the houses. What's interesting to note is they are cultivating crops everywhere. Every little space is being used. So driving in our bus, and instead of going through mountain passes, they've tunneled. If you look online, they've got these huge tunneling machines, and there are thousands and thousands of these tunnels. I think the longest we were in was like 13 kilometers. Incredibly impressive. One of the other things you'll notice is there's not much traffic, with the possible exception of a couple of city centers. There was, or a traffic jam for an accident, there was very little traffic. The two flags, by the way, in front of the bus, the hammer and sickle, is the flag of the China Communist Party, and the stars is the flag of the country. We're on our way to a mountain called Wawu, very famous for pandas. It's part of the Giant Panda National Park, but of course we have to have some food, little fishes, which were absolutely fantastic. You can kind of move aside some of the chilies and have as much or as little as you want, and they are hot. These are the, what is it called, marinated eggs, which they do in some alkaline solution. It's okay, it's not something that I would choose to eat. There are red pandas and potentially giant pandas, but you do not see giant pandas. They're virtually impossible to see. Xi'an means mountain, and this is the largest flat top mountain in Asia. I'm not sure if we were special people or not, or quite what that sign means. You can climb it on foot, which we did not do, or there is a very long cable car with a very cute song being played the whole time in the cable car. And one of my videos is of the Wawu Shan song, well known to the participants of the trip by the time we had gone up and down multiple times over 2 to 3 days. They're clearly geared up for a lot of people. This was a Friday, and it was very early, and it was very quiet. One thing to note is two things that surprised me in hotel rooms. Most hotel rooms had an ashtray and free condoms. And being Sichuan, there's an image of two pandas mating who might look a little more happy, but that's the way they're drawn. And maybe that's the way they are. The other thing every hotel room had is this fire escape hood. Fortunately, we did not need to use it. The cable car runs up and down. It's a long, long ride, and you can walk up these beautiful steps, but it's going to take a while. You get to the top, the view is magnificent, uninterrupted forest. And of course, lots of signs. Our guides walking along with telescope, camera equipment, and the local guide has a thermal scope to try and see anything that's hot. And we were particularly looking for a red panda. First thing in the morning, very quiet. We were hoping to see a red panda in the wild. And again, the view is amazing. And we did succeed. And here is one really attractive animal, relatively close to the walkway. One thing, and you can see the walkway, so in the national parks, they've built these amazing walkways. I've seen some complaints, but I think what's good is it corrals the people and they don't go wandering off. Cute little striped squirrel. Clearly he's being fed. I'm not sure what this young lady is doing. I think it's a photo op. Awesome views from the top. Of course, there are native rhododendrons, and this was spring, May, June. Now we're moving along, and some of the infrastructure, bridges, tunnels, roads, amazing. Next hotel. Yeah, I think this is the only other hotel I'm showing, and you can see kind of generic and perfectly fine. View from the room where we're clearly not in the city anymore. Breakfast on the side of the road being provided by our wonderful local guide. Some gorgeous flowers, beautiful views, beautiful forest. They have protected big areas. Another lovely meal, great eggplant, tofu, well spiced, always greens, really nice, great food. Smaller town with these very attractive older wooden structures. Had lunch in this very local restaurant, and the owner was so thrilled we were there. She wanted me to post a review. So we are on the area where the Long March happened, and there are lots of commemorative memorials to it. So we're actually in a gas station now, and you can see they've got this tiny little plot by the side, and they're growing corn and squash. As I said, every space is used for growing crops when they can. So now we're in the Tibetan Autonomous Area. We're staying for this one night at this basic place from the ethnic group. Very friendly. I'm showing the room because it was basic. It was not heated. The bed was heated. And this was the only time that for a hotel room we had a squat toilet. A lot of restaurants, the only toilet is squat. And curiously, and I would say typically, you want to bring toilet paper and hand sanitizer. They may not always have soap. So a really funny combination of things that you find that I was finding in China. So the local folks drove us in their 4x4s up the mountain pass to as high as we could get to see some special pheasants. And clearly we're in the snow line or approaching it. Above some of the clouds, absolutely gorgeous up here. With some, I guess, alpine type flowers. The road was damaged, so we had to stop while they filled holes with rocks. And then there was a snowdrift, and that was clearly as far as we were going to go. Coming back down and moving along, we are at a fruit stand selling gorgeous fruit, including durians, which have a huge reputation, and lychees on the left and mangosteens on the right. I bought some of each. The lychees were huge, actually the best I've ever had, and the mangosteens were lovely, fresh, and highly recommend eating both. I will say the mangosteens are messy. And now we're in a quite large hotel in a national park with very old rhododendron trees, more signs. Oh, this is funny. There's a coffee in Japan called Coffee Boss with an image of this old guy with a pipe, and clearly the Chinese have copied it. This is in a store, and these, I think, are duck legs for sale, which folks eat as snacks on the road. chicken's feet, another snack. Fairly basic bowl of noodles for lunch in the sort of cafe. Very pleasant with some fresh greens. Tibetan macaque, doing what all macaques do, which is hope for food. We did a night walk and drive and saw some great animals, including there's a giant flying squirrel. We were very fortunate to be able to see that. And now we're in a city park, and I'm showing this because it's a Mandarin duck. May not seem exotic, but this is because they're in London parks, but this is where they come from. And here are the babies eating durian, which I thought was particularly Chinese. Just one photo of things being built. There are bird cranes and there are yellow cranes, and there are many, many yellow cranes in China. Yet another meal, and fatty pork, which was absolutely succulent. It was hard not to overdo it, and lotus root cut up with shrimp. Really, really good dish. So now we're in the other panda center in Wulong. Always good to go at feeding time. Here's one of the big guys, and here are the babies being fed, and there are videos of that, and that is so cute. I'll let you read this at your leisure, but here are a whole series of rules for Chinese when they're doing their domestic tourism, which was very interesting. I particularly like the one, do not force to have photo with foreign guests. Combination of red panda and giant panda and communist signs. Every bathroom has a sign outside telling you who's responsible, who cleans it. And I actually like that. And I think it makes it personal. Maybe it makes people behave better. I think the surprising thing was potatoes. Here we have chips, and it's a Chinese dish. So we're now high in the mountains, and here are some yak herders with their yaks in a corral. I don't know quite what they're doing. They may be separating the young ones. And then we came across this, have absolutely no idea what it was, but we called her Barbie. And we came across this, which is a solar-powered monk recital. Very, very weird. The hotel had a robot that if you order room service from your phone using your QR code, of course, the robot delivers it. And we're actually we're on our way, we're on a pass to the Tibetan plateau, and in a parking lot, and you can see someone stopped, they've put up their little tent for their tea and making some food. Another sculpture commemorating the Long March. View down. Clearly, we're now in a much more Buddhist area. And then we come to a little town, so you go through that, and then you're in this modernity plonked in the middle of nowhere. And then you go outside, and there's a young man herding his yaks. And we are high on what's being called the Tibetan Plateau, or sort of the edge of it, and it goes for thousands of kilometers. And we were very lucky to see this, which is a Tibetan wolf with It's not the best of pictures, but it's got a really strange big round face. The yak herders, I think, come here for summer. They live in these little huts. And look at the road. Here we are, really in the middle of nowhere. You can see that it's a new, beautifully built road with no traffic. And a lady walking to her hut in traditional dress. And here is where they live for the summer. And then you move towards the sort of village, and these are piles of yak dung, which is important fuel for winter. So we're now in a wetland area, tourist, and with a huge boardwalk, and I will show you how popular it is in a second. And it's a boardwalk all the way around, and here it is. And we were the only Westerners here. It did thin out if you got further away from the visitor center. And you can see cute little piker right by the track. And they want us to travel in harmony. And here is a black-necked crane with its chicks walking relatively close to the boardwalk. Just an example, this is yak yogurt, which we've had many mornings, not obtainable in the US. If you are in this part of China, highly recommend it. The kitchen of one of the restaurants we stopped at, I was fascinated by this. I'm glad I don't have to cook in this. Big rice cookers at the back, very busy. We're here at the summit of a mountain, and look at the last sentence on this about the poet and what this famous poet said. It's a really weird attribution to Mao Zedong as a poet rather than the sort of founder leader of communist China. I translated this, and it's sort of antagonistic to the Japanese from the Japanese invasion of China. We stopped at a store that was selling, I guess, medicinal herbs, very attractively laid out. Next meal with a catfish. And in contrast to the previous toilet that I showed you, now we're getting fully automated ones with lots of buttons. We're here in this reserve to see the golden snub-nosed monkey, and we had to climb 2,200 steps, and you can see it's a beautiful construction. We could have gone on for the 5 kilometers, but went back. And they don't want us to capture them, fair dues. And here they are, really bizarre, beautiful looking monkey. And the male hanging out. Some weird plants. This is a service area by the highway, and I'm just so impressed. It's clean, it's attractive. There are lots of stalls. They're selling fresh fruit as well as sweetie things. Nicely laid. I have no idea what any of this is, but it's nicely laid out. Attractive places to eat. You can buy your rabbit leg. You can buy all sorts of other things. Again, very nicely set out. And of course, there are images of giant pandas outside. Tibetan macaque, we're in another, this is actually the last place in the group trip in the forest, and of course there's a walkway. Here is a young lady, this is my first example of someone live streaming. She's got a little attendant behind her, and I wish I'd taken a video. She could just talk. She was just talking without taking a breath. It was very impressive. So now we're driving back into Chengdu, big city, and you can see that. This is my only example of roads. There are better examples, but very impressive road system. And the final group meal was another hot pot. One half of the cooking is spicy, one half is not spicy. And then the next morning, we're off to Xi'an by train, by bullet train. Here is the train station. Of course, modern, big signs. Here is the bullet train. We sat in first class, which is not the top class. Top class is called business, which are sort of suites. This was like a 3-hour, 4-hour train drive. And then there's second class. Amused at the sign, information telling you how fast you're going, where you are. And so now we're in Xi'an. This is the hotel. Very attractive hotel, right downtown, right by the city wall. And they rent you these 1,300-year-old clothes, and you'll see lots of people, mostly young ladies, but also some men. And you can hire your photographer and have your photo taken, however fancy you want to be, including wig and all sorts. Generally not including sneakers. I'll show you, you'll see that. I had tea in the hotel one day, and this is what they provided, which was free of charge. It was very sweet. The view from the hotel breakfast area right onto the city wall, which is intact. You can walk, bicycle all the way around it. It's, I think, 1,300 years old. So now we're going to the Terracotta Warriors, one of the most popular tourist attractions in China. And it is busy. Had a local guide, and she said, no, it was not a particularly busy day. And you go in, big buildings. Again, this is China and plenty of money. Huge buildings that they've covered the pits. I know people have seen the photographs, but when you're there, I think both the scale and actually being close to the multitude of the warriors has an impact. You walk into pit 1, the biggest, and that's what you see. A crowd of people inside the building, and you can work your way. I did work my way to the front, and here they are. I think there are several thousand soldiers lined up. Each one was in, when they were discovered and uncovered, each one was in tiny pieces. Every single one you're seeing has been put together, and they're still working on hundreds and hundreds of these. It's unbelievably impressive. Each one is different, and there are different categories. These are the sort of infantry guys. These are fancier guys because they've got fancier armor. And then you can go up and see even fancier ones, and look at the ones that have not been excavated or put together. That's how it all starts. I think that's even more impressive. Here are ones that they've been working on. Each terracotta warrior has their own QR code, of course, because they're Chinese. Here is the next pit. Horses. And each one is different size. You can see they clearly understood anatomy from the details. So this is what, 2,200 years old. And then there's sort of museum areas, very popular. Again, you can work your way to the front and see in detail these amazing warriors. So this, I think, is an archer because he's kneeling down. All the weapons were stolen or taken very early on. There's this room for the archaeologists to work in that's air conditioned, and it moves over the pit. Here's another guy, and he's got his hands folded, so apparently that indicates he's a general, and he's got very fancy armor. And look at these horses. They did have chariots, and the soles of the feet, they've even stamped them to show how the, I guess, leather would have looked. And the details of the hair, all in terracotta. Very, very beautiful. The funniest thing is they were all painted, which has worn out. And when we see them painted, they don't look as severe as we're used to. So I think we'd have to get used to that. But can you imagine seeing all these soldiers in their original paint with their armor? And look at this guy. Look, he's even got fingernails. It's absolutely amazing. So now we're downtown at one of the pagodas, and here is one of the ladies dressed up in her old costume. Our local guide persuaded her to have a photograph taken with me. I don't know quite how thrilled she was about that. And Xi'an was the starting point of the Silk Road, and it was the capital of China for a mere 1,000 years. And I learned that it took 1 to 3 years to traverse the Silk Road in the Middle Ages from, say, here, say, to Venice. They've dug up some spectacularly beautiful artifacts. We visited in the afternoon what's called the Muslim Quarter, which seems to consist of a whole bunch of little stores selling food of all sorts of descriptions, and you can get various massages, including an ear picking, which did not look comfortable. Coconuts, I love fresh coconut. We did have drank a coconut. And of course, you pay for everything on your Alipay. There's a durian stall, which we avoided. Very popular. Here's an entrance to the city wall. People dressed up, doing their thing, having their photos taken. Some do wear the correct shoes. This is I think either the drum or the bell tower right downtown Xi'an. Beautifully preserved. We had a bunch of the specialty foods of Xi'an. This, just to be honest, seemed to be deep fried chicken. Some great noodles being served by our wonderful local guide, Camille. We went out Xi'an at night, which was lovely. Took the metro. It's modern, it's efficient, easy to navigate, signs all in English. Got to finish doing your makeup. And we went to this sort of water laser show with a bunch of locals. It was fun. It was great to see. More interesting, I think, was just the experience. And walking around at night was lovely. Lots of people, beautifully lit, beautiful buildings. The next morning we went to a street market. I think these are duck eggs and other eggs that have been processed. City Park, people doing dancing, singing, Tai Chi, all sorts of things to really use the space. Another pagoda area. This one we could climb up, and you can see over old and modern Xi'an in various directions. Very well constructed, very organized. Certainly mustn't trample the plants or climb. Another fruit stall right by our hotel. Rental bikes. The old drawbridge to the city wall. Very impressive structure. You can see how wide it is. Well used, including by people, of course, dressing up and having their photo taken. I'm sure the different clothes represent different things. There's a park all the way around the city wall. And here you can see this lady live streaming. She's got her desk, her lamp, her water, and I have no idea what she's doing. It could be a travel show, it could be anything. At night, they seem to prefer it. It's a wonderful backdrop for having your photo taken in your Tang Dynasty clothing. And here is my business class seat on China Eastern. I really enjoyed it. They did a very good job. And that's the end of my trip to China. Hope you enjoyed it.